Hello, my review is not about Second Million, but about Sleepy Hollow due to certain points of the story in question being against my religious beliefs. But, the story that I reviewed was about a young school teacher named Ichabod Crane who was attempting to win the hand of Katrina Van Tassel, a rich heiress. The story follows his misadventures shortly before he is supposedly spirited away by the specter known as the Headless Horseman. Now, if I were to talk about the story as if I would to a student, I would say, Washington, I thought your story was very well written. You made sure the characters were well developed and well rounded. You gave a balanced description of everyday life that goes on there, and a brief history, but still necessary history to the entire plot. The only thing about your story that I would change is how you tend to get absorbed in your story building. Don't get me wrong, your scenes are incredibly detailed and very beautiful, but they make the story slow down a bit too much and makes the entirety feel just a little bit bloated. All you really need to try to do is try to condense your setting and backdrop. For example, when you try to talk about what kind of birds Ichabod saw on his way to the Van Tassel's party, you decided to take your time to name each species he saw, when all you had to do was talk about how they were merrily chirping away and celebrating their soon-to-be departure to warmer lands. You really just needed to end it with that. You didn't have to name all the different species, even though it was appreciated. You want to try to let the viewer have a little bit of freedom to use their own imagination. That way you can keep the story at an even pace, but at the same time, don't feel like you need to condense it to a tiny little bit. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying try to condense it a little bit more. Another thing is you kind of reiterate certain character traits several times throughout the story, not just in actually saying it aloud, such as when you talked about Ichabod's firm belief in the supernatural and how he was so scared every time he traveled home. You sort of reiterated it much later when they were all talking about different ghost stories at Mr. Van Tassel's party. I understand you were trying to foreshadow what was going to happen, but I think that you could have but I don't think it was necessary to reiterate it over and over again like you did, even though you seem to be trying to talk to people who are just jumping into the story. You don't want to do that. You want to, not when it's a one-chaptered story that's not a series. Say go ahead and continue and pretend as if you're talking to the same audience, like say it was in theater and people are just entering in. You can't just start the whole thing over for the people that have only just entered. You need to keep going. Anyways, that was really the only problems you had in the story, aside from maybe using too many metaphors and synonyms. For instance, you talked about a wooden soldier that Mr. Van Tassel was watching as he smoked his pipe. I am not certain what that refers to, and other people might not either. So that's really all you would need to tweak the story. It was a wonderful tale. It's just with a little bit of polishing up, it could be even better. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you.